Hey guys, Gatsu here, bringing you another original English light novel review, my first one in a little while. Today I'm going to be reviewing a series called Restart Again, written by Adam Ladner. I want to say a big thank you to Adam for sending me this book to review, very kind of him to do. So before I get into the story of the book itself, as always I want to talk about the physical copy. It's quite big and can therefore be a bit cumbersome to hold when reading, but it's not too big to make it kind of uncomfortable. There's really nice artwork on the cover. I really like the front cover. However, I do feel that the matte finish kind of takes away from it a little bit, which I believe is something that Adam has now changed it to a glossy finish, which I think would make the artwork pop out a lot more. There you go, nice bunny girl on the cover. The interior, there's three bits of artwork which are all quite nice, especially one of which is a map actually, which does help to contextualize a lot of kind of what happens, which I think is a nice little addition. I do wish there was a little bit more artwork, but obviously when reading a light novel you're not reading it for the artwork. I do think that for me especially, when reading a light novel, whether original English or Japanese, the more artwork that is included helps me to kind of visualize everything and kind of the characters and sometimes like important moments that are caught in the illustrations. Moving on to what I think is the formatting. It is a little strange. So you've got the contents page there, and then the way the pages are formatted, it doesn't necessarily look the most professional at first glance. That's what I thought, but as I got to reading it, it does work. It works really well. It has like the I don't know what you would call them to separate chapters and whatever. Not chapters, paragraphs and sections. But yeah, I think the only part that's a bit jarring is the chapter titles, them being, just kind of underlined. But yeah, initially when I saw it, I thought it looked a little bit unprofessional. But when I finally got into reading it, it worked really well for the book. So it's not a major hindrance at all. So yeah, so it's overall it's a nice physical read. It's got a nice spine. So yeah, onto the story. Restart Again, the biggest draw is probably the concept, at least initially, because it's an Isekai story. However, the main character, who goes by Lux, is on his third Isekai, so he's gone from the human world to a fantasy world to another fantasy world, and then this world that we're starting here. And basically, a lot of the characterization of him is built upon in these flashbacks, and I really like how the flashbacks are done. It's usually after he goes to sleep, so there's a lot of the main character going to sleep, and then he has this dream about previous life, and you learn a lot about him, a lot of what shaped his character, and I think that's really well done. The initial few chapters of the story felt a little slow, and obviously you're setting up and everything, which makes sense, but it felt very, very generic. And then something happened where basically, I'll just straight up say, this is slight spoilers. Basically, he's led to this inn. People are being really friendly to him, really helpful. But then it turns out it was a scam, and he was being robbed. At this inn at night, he has the woman that led him there basically comes in to try and rob from him. He ends up defending himself, and therefore gets in trouble and gets sent to prison. And that is where the story kind of really starts, the real story. So it's a bit of a fake out, and I did like how it kind of flipped. When he's in prison, eventually there's a lot of him then kind of internalizing. You learn a lot more about his character once he's put into jail. There's also a big focus on magic in this as well. The character is learning. He knows some forms of magic from his previous lives in previous worlds, but he's trying to figure out how magic works in this new world, and there's a lot of focus on the mechanics of the magic and mana system and everything like that. And I did find that all really interesting. That happens throughout the book and I imagine will happen even further on, where he's constantly discovering more and more about magic as he goes. So that's where the first few chapters of being in the jail are. Then we're introduced to a character called Leah, and this is where the series started to really pick up for me and became a lot more entertaining, because it gave the main character Lux someone to bounce off of. And one of the main things that I liked about Restart Again is how real and human all of the characters felt, and their interactions. They're really well written and really well defined as to like their characteristics and their personality. And so once Leah is brought in, the dynamic kind of grows, and that's where I was hooked. Leah is basically a woman who was, again, this is slight spoilers, she was wrongly imprisoned so the corrupt guards could basically use her against her dad, and it's implied that they were planning to do some horrible things to her, as I'm sure you can imagine, and that's where Lux kind of takes it upon himself to save her, and the story goes on to him and Leah traveling together. However, it's not really a love story, because again, spoilers, slight spoilers for the first volume. This character on the cover is a character called Amaya, and she is from his first Isekai, and she is basically his true love. She's the reason that he saved Leah, because he promised her that he would save anyone that he could, and so on and so forth. And because he's still hung up on Amaya, he can't fall in love with anyone else, and that kind of leads to a very interesting dynamic between them, where Leah is clearly infatuated with Lux, but Lux kind of can't come to love her the way she'd want him to. And there's also this really interesting dynamic where they come to meet Leah's family, which are also really well written and really entertaining, when there's the whole dynamic between the four of them, where they clearly want them to get together as well, but Lux kind of can't. And then it leads on to an adventure and so on and so forth. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, I feel that this series, this book is strongest when the characters are interacting. I did have a few problems with this. It did feel a bit like there wasn't really any direction. The whole time you're kind of, I was kind of left thinking, where is this going? I wasn't anticipating what was going to happen next, because I had no clue where they were going to go with it next. And that is kind of hinted at changing by the end of the first volume. So this, in a way, this first volume very much feels like a prologue almost, to introduce the characters and to, introduce to the wider story that's about to come about in the second volume. The action scenes were really exciting. There was a specific scene that had me kind of midway through the book, that had me really kind of amped and pumped up and nervous as well, and anxious for the characters, which is a really good sign of how immersive and well written the book is itself, where it felt, I was trying to read as quick as I could to find out what was going to happen, because it was so kind of it put me on the edge of my seat, kind of thing, where I needed to know what happened, and it kind of got my heart racing a bit. Like that's how I know that this was a very well written book. Unfortunately, the few downfalls, like the lack of any clear direction, and some of the duller moments in the early chapters, did lead me to not give it like a perfect score. I ended up giving this a 4-star rating on Goodreads. Very, very enjoyable. I do want to see what happens next. I'm definitely excited to see what happens next. I really like the characters, especially Leah. Leah is a really fun, interesting character. I'm excited to see where it goes next, but obviously couldn't quite give it a perfect score because of the downfalls. However, I feel that in the direction the next volume is going, that may end up being like a perfect 5 out of 5. So, yeah, I should say actually that Volume 2 is out now. It has recently come out, so I will link that as well as the first volume in the description. I will also link the author's Twitter in the description as well. So again, I want to say a big thank you to Adam for sending me this review copy. Thank you to everyone for watching. If you liked the video, obviously like it. Let me know if you think you'd be interested in this book in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to see more reviews, more anime, manga, light novel related content, and I'll see you next time.